Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. So trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Are you a nonprofit professional who's feeling overwhelmed and burnt out? Well, welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast. I am your host, Haley Cooper. On this podcast, we will share stories of leadership, courage, and empathy that'll help you learn to take care of yourself, your staff, organization, and community. You will hear from nonprofit leaders who have been in your shoes and have learned best practices to raise more revenue and make a greater impact. Let's thrive together. We are back on the podcast today, and I have Shivani, who I met through the Social Impact Leadership Program through Cal State Fullerton. And if you want to learn more about that program and what it's all about, there is another interview with Zoot Velasco, who is the leader of that program. And it was a really profound program to understand what it takes to be a nonprofit leader in the social impact context and really changing the narrative. And it was such a pleasure to get to do it with Shivani and get to know her and continue our relationship beyond that class. So a little bit about Shivani. She had 10 years of working in hospitality to working in nonprofit/social impact organizations. And I love that you changed it to social impact after our class, in program development and fundraising, to currently working in marketing. Her experiences have shaped who she is, how she works, and how she connects with others. In addition to her passion for growing as a marketer, her formal training in both mindfulness and yoga practices has led her to become a wellness coach. She has had the honor and pleasure to work with youth, adults, and mothers over the past 3 years in navigating the challenges and nuances of their mental health. Her life's mission is to spread awareness about mental health and reduce the stigma around mental health conversations, specifically maternal mental health. Alongside reducing stigma and advocacy, she works with individuals to navigate their mental health conditions by redefining their relationship with themselves while utilizing coping tools to navigate their day-to-day to lead to an overall healthier, happy, more balanced life. And I know she has been such an impact in my own journey as becoming a new mom to 2 kids under 2 and helping with my own mental health. So Shivani, thank you. And I should also say, just a side note, we are recording this on International Women's Day. And I think it is so important that you are empowering women and moms in this space. So welcome. And why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and journey to really living out this life mission?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and happy International Women's Day to all of you amazing women out there. So my journey, as Haley mentioned, is very vast. I started off in the hospitality industry, running my own business for 10 plus years, then transitioning into the social impact space. And the reason for that transition was really because, one, I was highly burned out, which is ironic, highly burned out in running my own business. And I was going through a pretty big life change at that time, which was getting married. And so I knew that having my, weekends and weekdays be completely filled with travel was not something that was going to be sustainable moving forward. And I just wanted a little bit more balance. So I transitioned into the nonprofit social impact world, kind of in the programs. I started off in programs, and I was running the signature programs for NAMI Orange County. And it was a really great experience to be able to really start to dive really deep into my own mental health journey during that time. And along that the career transition before I even started working in the social impact space was that journey for my mental health. I knew that I was anxious. I knew that I was burnt out, and I knew that I wanted to do something that had a little bit more impact so that I can, go to sleep every day feeling like I did something good for someone else. So that was really my intention. And after working in programs for a while, I was able to transition into the development space naturally with my background and experience, having been in events. And through those 10 years, also working kind of in a consultant capacity with other nonprofits. So, even though I was doing social events, including weddings and birthday parties, I was also doing corporate events, which included consulting for smaller nonprofits that didn't have the budget to have a development staff. So I was aware of how fundraising sort of worked in the nonprofit space, sponsorships, securing, and all that good stuff. So I transitioned into that world. And now I have kind of transitioned into working still with nonprofits and still being able to make an impact, but in a different capacity. So now I'm working on the technology side, so for profit, for nonprofits, which is really ironic. But I really enjoy working at Virtuous because we are empowering nonprofits to build better systems and processes to really leverage and grow their giving. So what the most important thing for nonprofit leaders is, and any nonprofit really is, to raise as much money as you can. And having better systems, removing those silos between teams like finance and development and programs, the technology that we provides that. So it's awesome to be able to work on the side of marketing, building more awareness, and really building awareness with intention. So we understand, especially with my background and me kind of taking lead on this part of it, is really being intentional about how we're sending that message out there and why it's so important. So we understand that burnout is a real thing. A lot of us here at Virtuous have experienced burnout, but me and a lot of my colleagues have also experienced burnout, and we hear about burnout every single day when we're on conversations with nonprofit leaders. So it's being able to understand and being intentional about the type of product that we're providing and how that can help reduce some of those stressors that are typically seen in the nonprofit world.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And you said a lot of important things, and I want to touch on a few. So you said you were burnt out working in the hospitality industry and you wanted to go to the nonprofit world, but you found that didn't necessarily ease that burnout. So I know a lot of times you mentioned silos and how Virtuous is helping, bridge that. It can feel lonely, and burnout feels really lonely. And when you are development, and I believe you had this experience where you were wearing multiple hats and you were juggling them all and trying to keep them all. And it's really hard to juggle a lot of things. So can you tell me a little bit more about what led to your burnout, your shift to transitioning? I know that taking care of your mental health was definitely a priority within that, and what burnout was for you.
Yeah, so I know that burnout is one of those like really common words being thrown around a lot right now. It's sort of like self-care. So I just want to like preface by saying that burnout means something different to everyone. So whatever burnout looks like for me may not be what burnout looks like for you or the next person that's listening to this. So I'll just start by saying that. But the burnout that I experienced sort of with running my own business and sort of also working in nonprofits, I felt was very similar. You're wearing multiple hats. You are responsible for a lot of different things. And the constant need to be on was starting to get very draining. And no matter how many systems and processes you set in place, I noticed that that culture of do more, keep pushing was still something that was very much prevalent in the social impact world. And also the fact that there, although there could have been so much more done in terms of adding more staff to teams to create, better synergy, less, stress for just one person, the idea of, well, one person's been doing this job for X amount of years and we've been successful at it. So why can't we continue that down that road? And that's, I think, where I was starting to feel like I wasn't being heard in the sense of, no, we need to work as a team versus having just one person trying to do 10 different things. Whereas if we become more focused and we have, people working together, we can make a lot more impact in a shorter period of time. So the hefty, lofty goals that nonprofits set for themselves are wonderful, but also they're not sustainable for just a 1 or 2 person team. But that sort of is not the thing that comes to forefront usually when these kinds of goals are discussed. So I would say that that's kind of where I started to feel like my creative juices were starting to really kind of die out. I really just felt like I couldn't think creatively anymore. I couldn't think of any like good, better ideas. I was kind of stuck in, this loop of just getting my to-do list done. And for me, it was starting to feel overwhelming in the sense that I was taking my work home with me, which means that I was not sleeping well, which means that I was not functioning well, the next day. I was stressed about, what still needed to get done, what I didn't get done on my to-do list, what was rolling over. And I noticed that I was also starting to lose that passion for, fundraising and development, only because, and it wasn't a loss of passion because I didn't enjoy the work. It was a loss of passion in the sense of I was just so tired that I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. So that's sort of what led to burnout. And that's sort of how it started to look for me. And it also started to come up in like physical ailments too. Like I started to get really bad eczema that I never used to have before. Again, like I said, the sleepless nights, the headaches, and then just intense brain fog. That was just so intense that I knew that I had to do something for myself. Otherwise, I was not going to be successful in a role moving forward.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs. Helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. You're so strong and courageous to even, recognize those signs and understand that that's what you were experiencing. Burnout is a mental and emotional issue, but it does come out in physical ailments. And I've talked to so many people who burnout has happened long before, and then it starts showing up in physical ways. And that's when people understand that they need to make a difference. And the way you described burnout was accurate. It comes out in brain fog, lack of passion, not because you don't care, but because you're exhausted, lack of motivation, lack of joy for the things that you used to like to do. And even irritability. I know that I've had that when I've burned out, where I'm just like very irritable towards people who give me more to do and this capacity to not say no. And just lack, that lack where you don't know where it's coming from because you do care about the mission. So you went down that and you realized that that's what you were experiencing. And you touched on a lot of good points that I think, people don't like I said, people don't realize that they're experiencing that, and it can feel lonely, and it can be like, this is wrong, or, why am I experiencing this? So what steps did you take to, once you realized that, to move into more mindfulness? I know you are a certified mindfulness coach. So how did you, I don't want to say recover, but take the steps to move towards more mindfulness?
Yeah. So like I said, when I started working in the social impact space, I was already on my own mental health journey at that time. And I would say like over the years, it just evolved. And what I really recognized with who I am as a person is I like to have a variety of different tools. I like to be able to know what is available to me. How can I help myself? And with the help of professionals, and if medication is something that you have to go down the road of, that is totally fine. But there are also other ways that you can help support yourself. It takes commitment and it takes definitely a lot of honesty from yourself to yourself to be able to do that. And I really wanted to commit to learning how to live with whatever I was experiencing. So living with, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder already. And then I was experiencing burnout and high levels of stress. But I knew that if I didn't want to put a Band-Aid on it, I wanted to be able to find a way to cope with whatever my diagnosis was, and to be able to like move forward from there, right? And to grow and to really hold myself accountable. So that's sort of when I started my journey, and I took some certifications in around mindfulness and mental health, as well as coaching, to be able to help others who are experiencing the same thing. And what I did was I committed to myself that I'm going to make myself a priority. And that meant that I had to make really hard decisions, like unfortunately leaving, the nonprofit sector, and trying to really build boundaries. Learning how to say no was something that was very hard, but that I started to do while I was still working in the nonprofit world as a director of development, and really starting to ask more questions. I really recognized that a lot of times we just keep rolling with it and we don't ask why. And a lot of times when you ask why, you find out that it's just because someone came up with the idea and they wanted to go ahead and run with it, which is totally fine. But does that work for the bigger picture? And does that also work for your capacity, especially if you're a one-man team? So just being a little bit more intentional about how I was doing my work when I was still working in the nonprofit world was very important to me, but also giving myself the space and time to actually shut off. So, I would intentionally make sure that, when I was at work, I would focus on the work that was in front of me. But when I left for that day, that work stayed at work. It's going to be there tomorrow. There, literally, I recognized that nothing is going to happen. Like the place is not going to burn down, in like overnight. And if there is a fire, we will deal with that. Like that is an emergency. But most of the requests that come in, post work hours, or ideas, or when someone calls you over the weekend, if it's leadership calling you over, it's usually not because there's an emergency. It's because someone has an idea. They just want to talk to you about it. And that's really where I started to draw the line. My time outside of work was my time, and that was my time for me and my family. And I would make that very clear and intentional. So that's kind of where I started taking care of myself, and also start to get into a meditation and journaling practice. So just trying to be able to process my emotions and understand where are these emotions coming from. For me, writing things down is just how I like to get things out. I enjoy talking about things, but I also enjoy the act of actually writing things down. I feel like it really helps me release whatever emotions I'm holding on to that maybe I'm not as inclined to say out loud when I'm talking to somebody. So just being able to identify, like when was I starting to, when did that stress start to get triggered? Why is that being triggered? What is happening? How am I feeling? And I could notice like patterns in my mood, when I started to document all of these things. So, kind of through that whole process, I was able to really identify kind of my key important things. What is important to me to be successful in my role, to be happy, to feel like I've lived a fulfilled, life in my career as well as my personal life. And that just meant that I needed a little bit more balance. So that's why I have transitioned out of the social impact space, but I'm still involved in a different capacity.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your journey. And you're so brave to be on this mental health journey. And I think something that you said was really important is that it's okay to get help and it's okay to ask for help, especially professional help, because burnout can transition into it's a serious issue and it needs to be addressed. And it's something that is normalized, but it needs to be unnormalized. Like we've said before, it is lonely and it's really difficult to deal with. So if you feel like you can't cope with it in healthy ways, it's okay to ask for help and get help. And that's why I love having you on this podcast, because you're sharing your experience. And like you said, mental health journey is individualized, but at least it can give a real life story so that people can relate to it and know that they're not alone. And you talked about a few things, and we'll dive in a little deeper about prioritizing what's important to you. I think that's a key thing in saying no to things, because you know what's important to you and you know what matters and what you want to show up for. Shutting off, it's really hard to shut off. But what I found is when I go to bed at night, I brain dump, because you all know that when you go to bed, your brain doesn't shut down like you want it to. So, having a notepad and just brain dumping, or even on my notes on my phone, I'll brain dump. Not that you should have your phone out before you go to bed, but if that's all that's next to my bed, I'll have that. Learning to say no and asking for help. And I know that's a really hard thing to do, especially for us as women. And then meditation and journaling and learning how to process your emotions. I think that's an important part to recognizing what's causing that anxiety, naming it, writing it out, processing it, and then, figuring out where to go from there. I know that you started, when you went through all this, you wanted to open space for other director of development professionals that are experiencing burnout to have a brave space to come and process what they're going through. So can you talk a little bit more about your Decompress table that you created?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, the journey with mental health and I think also with burnout is something that is a very ongoing journey. It's very much, not linear. There's no start and finish. It's a roller coaster. And as fellow development professionals can probably relate to, so is our jobs as development professionals. It's a roller coaster. There's always another big project to look forward to. There's really no time for celebrating, a win. It's like, okay, great, we're done with this, move on to the next. And that sort of culture can start to really take a toll, because you are not giving yourself time to even recognize the hard work that you just put in, the countless hours, preparing for an event, and then, raising, funds or even exceeding your fundraising goals. It's like, wonderful, we did that. Okay, now let's move on. And it's not, we don't have in the social impact space, we don't have that culture of celebration and just recognizing the work that goes into putting together these types of events. So I wanted to create a safe space I knew that I was not the only one. And this being here on this podcast proves that, is that I'm not the only one feeling this way or have felt this way or that went through something like this. And I wanted to create a safe space for other fundraising leaders to come together to really be able to take some time out of their day to recognize how far they've come, in their own goals, in, maybe even their careers. Share, maybe even some challenges that they might be experiencing, whether it's challenges with, maybe a certain fundraising event or project that they're working on, or just straight up challenges that they're experiencing, with themselves. And being able to have a space where you can connect with other peers to maybe even hear from them. How have they coped in certain situations? Or how are they navigating some of these challenges so that you can learn from them, was really the ultimate goal of the Director of Development Decompress. And it was also started in the midst of the pandemic, where people were not getting to see their colleagues and coworkers or even their donors face to face. And it was that lack of socialization and interaction that was really a missing piece. And I wanted to be able to utilize our wonderful world of technology to be able to bring people together. And I recognized that creating this roundtable was a great way to be able to connect with people from all across the country versus just someone that's at your organization. So it was a great way to connect with peers and other nonprofit leaders from all over the country to, one, not only just learn from them, but also just create that space of celebration and self-care. And really, there really is no agenda when it comes to these sessions. I usually will show up and, I'll ask if there's anything that's top of mind, whether it's related to their own mental health or a project that they're working on. And individuals will just start to share, ask for advice, or just share, hey, I want to share this win. We just finished this big campaign and we all celebrate. We all take a moment to celebrate. And I think that that's really important, because the feedback that I've gotten from our regular attendees are that, it's a nicely curated safe space where you come and you can just decompress and you don't have to worry about what you're saying and, who's going to be there. It's just a safe space for you to come together to get the support from your peers that we typically don't get otherwise. And I'm just trying to be able to bring that culture into the social impact world, because I think that that needs to start to become a norm versus something that you can just get at a roundtable discussion like this.
Again, you said so many important things and just so many good nuggets of wisdom. And I love that you created this space. I actually just posted on my LinkedIn the other day about creating a culture of celebration, because I'm all about building emotionally connected teams to raise more revenue. I think our teams need to, I've had people are, why isn't this working? And it's because our teams aren't emotionally engaged. And like you said, we're racing from one project to another. We're not taking the moments to celebrate accomplishments, both big and small. And so I'm just going to read what I posted. You can also look on my LinkedIn, but creating a culture of celebration helps meet employees' need for affirmation, inclusion, and appreciation. And it actually helps release oxytocin, which is the cuddle hormone, but it releases those feel-good hormones, and including serotonin, which also stimulates a sense of well-being, increases motivation, and decreases stress. And it's great for relationship building and cooperation. When you celebrate at work or within an environment of other people that are in this work with you, it establishes healthy physical and emotional changes in your brain. So what you are doing is beyond what just talking about it. There are literal physical and emotional changes happening because you're allowing people to celebrate within the context and build their network, as well as commiserate. We all need that too. But, having that safe space to go and celebrate and also present the challenges, and then having other people hold that space for them, which I think is not very common, but very much needed. So you've transitioned out of social impact work while you're impacting social impact in another way. When you were looking for that job, what was important to you? What did you ask for when you were interviewing for that next job?
Yeah, I think I really focused heavily on what were some of the employee benefits that were provided. I was curious to know, like, is vacation a thing? I wasn't necessarily, hung up on getting unlimited PTO, but how is time off perceived, in the company culture? What about, mental health days, or, taking just personal days that you need to take? Is that something that, is available to me? And what does it look like in terms of the culture for work-life balance? I wanted to be able to do impactful work when I was on the clock, if you will. But once I was kind of done for the day, I wanted to be able to step away and know that, nothing was gonna, no one was gonna freak out, and nothing was gonna happen. But should I need to stay on for longer periods of time, that's totally fine for, getting projects and deadlines met. But more on that day to day, when you're kind of just working towards your greater goals, what is offered. So obviously, I asked about those things, also asked about sort of the health insurance benefits that were offered. And I know oftentimes that's not something that is as commonly offered in the social impact space. So that was something new for me to navigate and ask questions and learn about. But I think really for me, it was more, how is the culture at the company itself? Like, what do they value, and do they value their employees and their employees' well-being? That was the most important thing for me.
Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people, whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today. And I think from what I've heard, you found that where it is I would go so far to say, a people first organization that really allows you to have those mental health days without questions. And I think building that, it's almost building like a trust environment where you do have that space to show up as yourself, but also take time for yourself. So if there is someone in the nonprofit space who, after hearing this feels this way and they don't know where to start, where do they start? What's one step that they can take towards moving towards better mental health?
Yeah, I think just taking that first step to recognize, like, hey, I think I might be experiencing some form of burnout. That is the first thing, is recognizing. The next thing is starting to be a little bit more open about it, having conversations. You can reach out to me anytime. I can also send over my LinkedIn contact information and email address. But even reaching out to Haley, you know, having a conversation with someone that you feel like you can connect with and that you can trust to be able to just share what you're experiencing, I think is so important. And even if it's you're one of your friends or a family member, that's totally fine as well. But just being able to get it out there, putting it out there into the universe sort of starts to create change in itself. So just recognizing that, you are feeling this way is that first step. I think the second step is just recognizing and understanding for you what is important to you and how would you like to proceed. Are you looking to, would you like to learn how to build better boundaries? Or are you looking to work a little bit more on your own mental health so that you can deal with these stressful situations in a better way or in an easier, more manageable way for yourself? What are some of the things that you're going to do for yourself that you are going to prioritize? So yes, work and family is a priority, but so are you. So really identifying and carving out, being intentional about it. Just block it out on your calendar. Even if it's 15 minutes after you get home from work that you just need your space and your quiet time to just process the day or listen to your favorite song or take a shower, whatever it is, ask for that. Plan it out in your day, and you'll recognize that people around you, whether it's your spouse or your significant other or your family members, will intentionally help you create that space as well. But I think really just being able to identify and then start to put some actionable steps in place for yourself is really important as a first step. And of course, then, participating in things like the DoD Decompress, or, maybe getting some coaching one-on-one to help you work through some of what that looks like for you, because everyone relates to different things.
Yeah, definitely. I think, finding, and I'm going to link to your contact information and the DoD Decompress table in the show notes if anyone is interested in popping on or reaching out to Shivani to just, have a chat. And, I think you made an important point where you're just finding someone that you trust to talk about it with. And I think that's also important in taking that next step towards self-care, so that you have someone that can hold you accountable to it and can hold you accountable to when you are running a little ragged or running towards that burnout, that they can help pull you back and help you take a step back and really evaluate what's going on in your life and then help you prioritize that self-care. So you did mention, I'm going to ask you one more question and then we're going to wrap it up. You did mention, as a mindfulness coach, you probably have a lot of tools in your toolbox for self-care. And I know it's individualized for everyone. And I think self-care, people might be like, oh, I have to add it to my to-do list now. I have to add that 15 minutes in my day. Where's the time? But I don't think time is the enemy. It's how we make our time. And especially as nonprofit leaders, we feel like our time is so valuable because there are lives on the line. But we can't serve our clients well if we're sick, if we're not showing up at the office because we're not doing well. So what is one thing that, or a few things that people can start right away to implement a self-care plan?
Yeah. A simple thing that you're already doing is breathing and being intentional about your breath. And you can do that anywhere. You can do it while you're eating breakfast. You can do it while you're even driving it to the office, or you can even do it when you're driving back, stuck in traffic, whatever it is. Right before you jump on a call, just take a step back. You can sit up straight wherever you are, even if you're standing, even if you're walking. Sit up straight. Make sure that your feet are not crossed and your legs are not crossed and your feet are planted onto the ground. And just take a couple deep breaths. That can help sort of just alleviate some of that stress or those high level where you feel like, you're breathing from your chest is not the correct way to be breathing. You really want to kind of breathe through your diaphragm and your belly area. So imagine like a balloon, and as you inhale, that balloon expands. And then as you exhale, the balloon sort of contracts back towards your spine. So doing a couple, like even 3 of those deep breaths can help you just sort of level set it will kind of help you transition, even if you're working from one project and then you're transitioning to another. It could really help you sort of clear your mind and be able to kind of start that next project with a more clear mindset. And then, like I said, find it. It's not about, they say, I read, my husband tells me this all the time, and I think he read it somewhere or heard it somewhere, but it's not that we don't have enough time in the day. And I think, Haley, you said this, it's how we prioritize our time. We all have that 24 hours, but it's what we do with those 24 hours in the day that really makes the difference. So recognizing that, when you come home, you definitely have a wind down routine, whether it's, from your commute home or once you get to your house, or even if you're working from home, typically there is some sort of a wind down routine. For those working from home, what I found really helpful, because I work from home, is being able to just step away from the screen and go take a walk, get outside. And you can even do that if you're working in an office setting. Instead of, a lot of us, and I've been guilty of this too, eat lunch at our desk and we're working and eating lunch at the same time. But just taking that intentional time, you can, if you have to eat lunch at your desk, great. But if you can, take your lunch outside. Try eating it, finding a place to sit outdoors, sit by yourself, maybe play either a podcast or music or something that you enjoy so you don't feel like you're alone. And be able to get outside and get some of that sun. That also will really help. And it's not really something that will take too much time out of your day. A lot of times, if I wasn't able to get that walk or go eat my lunch outside, I would at least step outside at some point during the day for a quick five-minute walk, just to kind of level set. Again, get some sun, get some vitamin D and C and all those good stuff. But it's a great way to kind of also get your body moving, get your spinal fluids moving, because oftentimes when we're sitting for so long, our bodies tend to tense up, and so do our hips and our shoulders. So when we're walking, everything starts to get the blood flowing a little bit better, and you kind of then have a little bit more oxygen pumping to your entire body. And then the third thing I would say is, just to find one thing that you can start today, whether that's when you come home, just maybe closing the door and asking for 5 minutes to just sort of either change or shower or just be by yourself to kind of just process what kind of day you've had, is so important. And honestly, once you try it, you will never go back to just going straight into your evening routine. You will really value and cherish those 5 to 10 minutes that you have yourself, and you can implement that starting today.
Yeah, I love the idea of taking deep breaths. And I think we should end on that, of taking a few deep breaths. So if you've made it this far in the interview, before you turn this off and go on to your next thing, this is your reminder to take a few breaths. I also think creating that wind down routine is super important. And for me, as a certified stress management coach, sleep is our priority as well. So how can you, like I said, you shouldn't have your phone near your bed. So how can you, transition to really prioritizing sleep, whether that's going to bed an hour earlier, turning off your devices. I think that will help a lot with, your health and wellness. So like I said, let's end on a couple deep breaths. We did this in the middle of another podcast. So go listen to it. We did a whole grounding exercise, which is foundation of her self-care practice and what her program is all about. So yeah, this is our daily reminder to take a few breaths. So do you want to guide us in that as we end?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So wherever you are, even if you're seated or you're standing, just make sure that your spine is straight. Your legs are not crossed. Your feet are planted on the ground, or you're able to just stand still for a little bit. You don't have to close your eyes if that's not comfortable for you, but if you're seated and you'd like to, you can. And first, starting to notice where your breath is in your body right now. How are you breathing? Are you breathing through your mouth, your nose, your chest? Just sort of starting to get a recognition of where that breath shows up in your body right now. And then together we can start to take a couple of deep inhales. So breathing in through our nose, we're also going to breathe out through our nose. But as you breathe in, just imagine your belly, like I said, expanding like a balloon. And then as you exhale, imagine your belly contracting back towards your spine. So we'll do some of these together. And exhale, release back in. Get all that air out of your body. So push, you could be a little bit dramatic. You can push your stomach in a little bit just to push out all that air. We'll do 2 more of those on your own pace. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more. Inhale. And exhale. And just noticing kind of how you feel now. You might feel like your shoulders dropped a little bit further past your ears. You might feel a little less anxiety. You might feel a little more calm. Noticing where in your body you might still feel a little bit of tension, and you can still take a couple of deep breaths, focusing on those areas. Recognizing maybe now you're taking slower, deeper breaths. And then whenever you're ready, you're welcome to, if your eyes are closed, open your eyes. You can stay here for as long as you need. There's really no rush, but just recognizing how just taking these couple seconds for yourself can really make a huge difference in just how you're feeling overall. You could just come off of a really stressful meeting and you can do this exercise for just a couple of seconds, and you can immediately feel your body shift into a little bit more of a calmer state versus staying in that high level, fast heart rate pace. You can kind of slow down and tell your mind, we're not going to stay in that. We're going to calm down. We're going to take care of ourselves. And the breath is always there. We're doing it anyway. Just recognizing it and being more intentional about it can really make a difference. So thank you so much.
Thank you. The shift is so real when you just take a few minutes to breathe. I could feel it. I know that, like, I carry tension in my shoulders and my shoulders dropped, like you said, and it just started to release. So thank you so much for being here, for being brave and bold to share your story and, again, create a space for other people to feel not so alone. I appreciate you, and I will again link to where you can find Shivani and continue to follow her and what her journey has been.
Thank you.
If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.